Hello, and welcome to the Health Data Ethics Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Owens, and I'm here with my friend and collaborator, Brandon Reese. Brandon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jenny. My name is Brandon Reese. I'm a business relationship manager with Purdue University. I've been in that role about 5 years, and I have the opportunity to interact with Jenny at our ongoing annual BRM Connect conference.
Yes. So there's been several years in a row where Brandon and I have connected, had the beginnings of a fantastic conversation, and then found ourselves pulled in opposite directions by the demands of a conference. So I successfully peer pressured him into appearing on the podcast so that we have a chance to share his wonderful content from last year's BRM Connect, and also so that I can ask him a bunch of questions that I wouldn't have gotten the chance to if I were in the audience. So, Brandon, your talk this year was on being your most honest self. Talk to me a little bit about your overall thesis there.
So my background is not in IT, though I am an IT business relationship manager. One of the things that I have found that's helped me the most break into that space is, to put it bluntly, being okay with not knowing what I don't know. I've found that in the IT industry, at least as long as I've been in it, we'll call it a preconception that everyone needs to be the most knowledgeable about every topic in the room. And if you don't know about something, you're somehow less than. And coming in from the outside, like my background is finance. I spent a decade and a half in corporate finance before finding this role. So I really didn't know that much about IT. I believe that in my role, knowing, mile wide, inch deep seems to be the thing that helps, but that can be off-putting, especially when you're getting to know someone and starting a new relationship. If you say, yeah, I'm from IT, but I don't know the answer to the question that you're asking me. So what I came up with for this talk was how I could communicate what being the most honest version of yourself at work, in this case, was like, and how that had helped build those relationships, because it had happened. This is my 5th year now somehow. And it has been quite the journey, going from, working in finance to starting the job right as the pandemic hit and learning all of that from this guest room for a couple of years, and then making those relationships grow into something meaningful. So that's kind of how the thesis came to be.
I love that. I feel like you joined the BRM community at such a uniquely challenging time, not only with the pandemic, with working in higher education and a big shift to virtual everything, but also, how do you build relationships when you only see people through a screen? Yeah. It's a totally different landscape. It's very challenging. So your talk is broken up into 4 kind of specific sections. So you've got one on learning, one on listening, one on speaking, and then one on telling. I was wondering, I wanted, each one of these has such great content, so I kind of just wanted to walk our way through these, and I wanted to start with learning. You had a couple of things in your learning section that really, really spoke to me, and one of them was the importance of experiential learning. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. As I mentioned, the shift from a previous role, previous career, all that into what effectively was IT within the College of Agriculture. So agriculture technology was kind of abrupt. And given everything else you mentioned, like going from working in an office 5 days a week, because Purdue at the time and most higher ed really didn't have remote work arrangements. But experiential learning has been part of the Purdue BRM team's, I guess, process or secret sauce since the beginning. Our team leader, who's now retired, Leanne McGivern, she said in my interview, actually, I'm going to throw you out of the nest very quickly. And I didn't really know what that meant. And I said, yeah, okay, whatever. I really like this job. This sounds like a thing I can nod my head to and say yes. What she meant was she's really going to throw me out of the nest. And it was quite the process to go from an operational type job, which a lot of BRMs come into the role from an operational type job. So you retain some of that operational predisposition, right? I know how to do these things, so I can maybe still help. As I'm promoted or I change into this role, I still know how to go back and help. And I was fortunate in that I didn't have any of that baggage, because I came from finance, and when you leave finance, like, that door closes very quickly for a variety of reasons. But experiential learning is go where your business partners are. So for me, at our program at Purdue, our business partners are all of the faculty within the college. So traditionally, you have like a single business partner. As of today, I have like 107, which is about 106 too many. if you read any of the literature or take the certifications. However, you can choose to view it as my singular business partner is the academic function within the College of Agriculture. And all the people I interact with are just pieces of that. However, working with faculty for as long as I have, they all do their own thing. Right? No two faculty do the same thing, or we wouldn't need the second one. Mm-hmm. So we go where they are for experiential learning. I go to their classrooms, seminars. I find myself standing in the middle of Indiana cornfields in July often. Yeah. It is not the IT job I thought I was maybe signing up for. It is definitely not the finance jobs that I'd had for the last decade and a half, but it is one of those things that just being there enables a level of trust and understanding. Like, I understand and they understand that I am not a researcher. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's degree. If I did, it wouldn't be in agriculture. Although as long as I've been in this now, I feel like I'm owed some sort of like bachelor's of general ag studies. But it is a matter of showing up. And that's a big theme throughout the rest of this talk, is that a lot of this role is the showing up, whether it be virtually or otherwise. So when I started, I was on campus for 5-6 weeks, and then we went home for basically 2 years. Virtual seminars, go to all those that you can, make sure your camera's on, show your face, things like that. But you were learning not only about how to do the role, like, because there is an operational component to being a BRM. You need to track data and metrics and report on what you do and things like that. But for us, when we're talking about this experiential learning component, was how do I learn as much about what my technology partners and business partners are doing? So I get to spend time doing research in just industry things that might be related to agriculture. So right now, AI or Internet of Things, right? It isn't necessarily Purdue related, but I'm going to everything that I can find, virtually, in person, whatever, just to learn more about what might be impacting them. If nothing else, it really helps you have that vocabulary and that credibility when you have those conversations with those business partners.
Absolutely. I think even a passing interest in the subject matter that your business partners are working with on such a regular basis really pays off as you're building these kind of relationships. One other thing that you mentioned in your learning module that really struck me is your precise approach to defining what a win means to your business partner. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed as I've had the opportunity to coach, I think I'm up to like 25 teams now, mostly in higher ed, that I've had the opportunity and privilege to really coach, is that when they're starting the role, especially if the program is new or they are new to the role, they're not really sure how to know that they're succeeding. Right? The BRM role is still kind of nebulous, and a success for me is a success for my business partner. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to know everything about, we'll use an example from my role here, agronomy. I don't need to know everything about the growth stages of the corn plant. Like, I don't. But I do need to know what a win looks like for them. So if they're a researcher and they have, let's say, a grant from an industry partner, a seed manufacturer, something like that, or a mechanical, like a John Deere, something like that, they are being tasked with using that money to achieve some discovery, whatever it might be. And that is generally the nature of research. And one of the things that I, as a BRM, really try to enable is shorten that time to discovery. So in this example, knowing what a win looks like for them may be they're able to produce a paper or two, they're able to publish, they're able to get something, let's say, commercialized or a patent. And whatever I can do to help them get to those places, if I know what those places are, it enables me to focus my efforts in a way that I'm not just checking in and saying, hey, how are you? How's the technology? What can we buy for you next? How many sensors do you need? Like that kind of stuff, because it can get that way if you're not careful. So again, that's part of that experiential learning too, is knowing how they win helps you enable that win.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the BRM role is really one that inspires sort of the decentering of yourself and more thinking about, okay, as you said so perfectly, right? A win for me is a win for my business partners. So let's get them their win, and that will be the win for me.
I'll add something to that that I've I've come across when I meet with new technology partners, especially with faculty, they assume generally that you're part of the ecosystem of Purdue and you're there to help them. And that's great. But for the technology partner side, so people I work with like in research computing that have our supercomputers or the teaching and learning technology suite that we use, they kind of have this incredulous look sometimes like, okay, what do you get out of this? Like, again, this is maybe just my perception of IT, but this kind of like I'm holding everything I know close to the chest because I need to know it. What do you, the BRM, like what do you get? Like you're free, right? We're no cost overhead. Yeah. So where are you? Like, are you taking work from me? Are you giving work for me? And getting them over that hump of I'm just here to enable a win for them, which in a lot of cases is also a win for the technology partner. One of the things in higher ed, especially, or any large organization may struggle with, is finding good use cases or participants for whatever their solution is. Originally from Iowa, so pardon the dated movie reference, but we have a tendency to do Field of Dreams IT, where IT gets, if you build it, they will come, and they don't ask the end user. This is one of those places where the BRM can really provide that space in the middle of, hey, before we build this thing, let's actually ask who is going to use it, how they're going to use it. And sometimes we forget about that human component to technology solutions. Like the technology can be great, the machine can be great, the software can be great, but we don't pay enough attention to how the actual human is going to use it and what they'll gain from it until it's already built. So that is another space where I think there's potential for the BRM to really kind of smooth things over.
It's really interesting because you're calling out almost a cultural shift between academics or IT, where the value is in amassing lots of knowledge, but in having that knowledge kind of be directly attributable to you yourself, right? I'm a researcher, this is my area of interest, or, I've been in IT at this institution for 30 years. I remember when we were still using punch cards. Yeah. My references are slightly...
No, I know those people. You're good.
Yeah, and so a BRM really has the same mandate to learn and to understand their field, but then to share that knowledge almost indiscriminately. I wanted to poke you on one more thing in this learning module that you have. Mm-hmm. So let's say that you're a BRM who's been assigned to a business unit, and the business unit that you're assigned to is just not your favorite, right? You mentioned you don't know a lot about agronomy. Okay, cool. I know nothing about agronomy, so we're there in that together. But how would you coach somebody to go about building a veneer of expertise in a new business unit that they've been assigned to?
Yeah, there is a lot of opportunity out there in what I would call non-traditional independent research. Mm-hmm. So this is also part of Learn Broadly. Go places that don't make immediate sense necessarily, like go to X or Twitter or whatever your platform is. Are there industry publications that you can look at? Does your company post on social media? Does your business partner post on social media? This next one, be a little bit careful with. Depending on what type of business partner you have, you can look at their personal social media accounts. You can learn a lot about somebody. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like the industry or the department or whatever it might be, do research into things that just might impact the field. And this, I touch on this in this talk as well. Make time to meet with yourself. And one of the things that you can do during that is find time, block your calendar, whatever you need to do research into things that might just tangentially be involved in whatever that department, initiative, goal, organization might be. If nothing else, you, again, learn that vocabulary, you get that credibility. And I've found that when I put time into something, it starts to become interesting to me just because I want to know why. So a natural curiosity, I think, is maybe part of what makes a good BRM, though it's not generally on a job description. Wanting to know a little bit more. For me, the why I do the job is more move the needle. So I could, like anything else, Purdue Agriculture has a lot of mission statements, value statements, things like that. I'll sum them up in my personal interpretation, which is we're trying to feed the world. Like whatever department you're in, we're trying to feed the world more with less. And so for me, whatever I do, if I'm doing independent research, I try to look at it through that lens of, is what I'm doing right now going to move that needle even just a little bit? Like you said, I'm not an agronomist. like I said, I guess. I'm not an agronomist. I don't have a PhD. I don't do research. But if what I'm doing as a BRM is helping to nudge that needle just a little faster or farther, or to help it from slipping back, like through duplication of effort. A lot of times in IT, we see, especially in siloed organizations, one organization's building a thing, another one's building a very similar thing, and they don't know about it because they don't talk to each other. And they've now expended time and potentially valuable resources coming to basically the same answer. Those are places where I feel I can help move that needle just a little bit. And so that is, yeah.
That's amazing. So, Brandon, I think I'm going to close on our topic of learning here. I'm going to thank you for your time and coming on and talking with me about this. In our next episode, we're going to talk about the chunk of your talk around listening actively, around listening to yourself, because you perfectly laid the seeds for our next episode. So thank you.
Great.
Cool.